Hello, YouTube. I had the silly idea to make a level 1 battle pet tier list. Essentially, if you're like a new player and you're trying to pick up your first battle pet, which pets are going to give you the most mileage? Which ones are going to be the best at level 1? So, things that I'll be considering in this tier list is one, um, a pet having more variety of usage is more important for me than like a really good pet, but for only one build in the game. Because, if you don't like that one build, maybe you play it for a single league and then you drop it, you still want to have pets that you can use like in different characters and different builds. So we have the OP character. These are pets that can either be variety pets or even one-trick pony pets. I just think they're so damn good that they are in a category of their own because they should just be talked about. Then I'll put all the pets to the variety. They can be used in multiple builds. They're not necessarily OP, but a lot of times they'll fill up your legendary slots. The OTP pets, the one-trick pony pets. This is gonna be stuff like, oh yeah, this pet's only for RS2, this pet's only for Moto, etc. And then F tier. F tier pets are just, unfortunately, any pet that we'll just never see use, never see play. Except for like maybe very niche builds, but you just generally don't use them. Okay. So first up, we have Squirtle. Squirtle level 1 is actually not that insane of pet. I do think I did the math on Squirtle. A Squirtle level 6 is like over 50% more damage if you're playing Bing 2. The only problem that I have with Squirtle level 1 is for starters. You only get 16% additional damage, and you only get that 16% additional damage if you're playing Bing 2. Which, like, that's very, very niche. And it's definitely just going to go into the OTP tier list. But even as an OTP, at level 1, it's not even that good of a pet. It's literally just 1% addition, 16% additional damage. Like most level 6 pets are going to be able to, to compete with that. Like level 6 purple pets. Azure Gunslinger. Azure Gunslinger is specifically a melee pet. Any melee attack-based pet can use her. But she is absurdly powerful for that archetype. Not only does she have crit and attack speed, which is really nice, her hero trait, which gives you stacks of pure heart, just give you, it stacks up to 5 times, and it gives you 5% additional damage for each stack. Compared that to Squirtle, which only gives you 16% additional, you get 5 stacks of pure heart. That's 1.05 to the power of 5. Which is, I'm not sure if it actually only has 5 stacks or if it has 5 stacks or 6 stacks at level 1, to be honest. But if it has 5 stacks, that's 27% more damage, which is really good. And if it's only 4 stacks, it's still 21.5%, which is still better than the Azure Guns, than, Squirtle. And I'm pretty sure it is actually going to give you 5 stacks at level 1. So I'm definitely going to be putting this in the OP tier. If you play any sort of, melee-based character, I definitely think you want to pick her up. Literally any character can just pick her up and use her in their build if they're playing melee. The only downside that really this pure heart has is it needs to be nearby enemies. So unfortunately you can't use it in every attack build because you have to be on top of the enemies to get the function out of it. That is actually kind of niche in the sense that in mapping and stuff, that's not very usable. But if you're doing bossing and things, you're often going to be on top of the enemy and you're going to be able to like utilize that. And as an additional note, leveling this pet up gets a ton of benefit. You both take less additional damage taken with your pure heart active, and you're gaining an additional max stack, which is really nice. Okay. Valkyrie's Night Patrol. So for every 2% max mana you consume, you get a stack of Valkyrie's Hymn, which is giving you 4 additional damage and stacks up to 4 times. This pet is essentially just a significantly worse version of Azure Gunslinger. The only positive that she has is it doesn't have like the nearby requirement to it. But obviously you need to then play a build that is consuming mana. An obvious answer for that is Rosa 2. This is a pet that was made specifically for Rosa 2 in mind. But even on non-Rosa 2 builds, if you're just playing a build and you just intentionally don't, let your mana go down to 0 and your mana cost down to 0, you just like leave a tiny bit of cost in your character, you're gonna be able to stack this up and like have this effect active at all times. That being said, though, she's just not that insane of a pet. Once you get more levels in her, I think she gets a lot more effectiveness out of the pet. But until at level 1, I would only really consider picking her up and investing into her eventually if you're like a Rosa player. So it's gonna go in the OTB tier, right next to Squirtle. It should be noted that this is better than Squirtle's damage because this multiplies with each other, so it's actually not 16% additional damage you're gaining, but instead it is 16.9% additional damage, almost 17% additional. Portrait of the Fallen Saintress. Portrait of the Fallen Saintress is very good. Very, very, very good. So, one thing, her niche, like get the stacks, is a lot more lenient than what it is with the Valkyrie Night Patrol. Because needing to consume mana, that's not something that every build can really do. That's something you need to kind of build in and allow. Gaining blessings, that's just another Tuesday. Not only is that really good, but her actual pet gives you Erosion Pen, an entire 10% Erosion Pen, which is absurdly strong. Not only are you getting 10% Erosion Pen, and for reference, the Valkyrie Night Patrol is just like, again, crit attack speed. Not only are you getting 10 Erosion Pen, you're also getting 70% additional at level 1. And if you do get levels sooner, at level 2, you get another stack. At level 3, another stack. At level 6, another stack. Which is very good. As well as you get eventual erosion resistance and from your Repentance stacks, which that's kind of whatever. Very, very good pet. Definitely going to go into the OP tier for me. It does go insanely well with levels, but even at level 1, I think it's a very, very strong pet. Especially because erosion damage is just very usable. There's a lot of builds in this game that can use erosion damage, a lot of characters that can utilize that. Bonnie. So, this is just an easy ass tier. Bonnie gives you 2 max channel stacks. Any build in the game that is using channeling stacks is going to use Bonnie. It is just an instant lock-in for any channeling build. On top of that, it also gives you movement speed. We fucking love movement speed. But there's not really much to say. If you're playing Mind Control, if you're playing Split Shot, if you're playing anything like that, you're gonna use Bonnie. She's a top OP S tier character. And she's also one of those pets that gets almost all of her value from level 1, which is exceptionally good. A pet like this gets a ton more value from being level 6. You only really need Bonnie 1 to get like the brunt of her effect. Obviously, you get a lot more from having a leveled up, but the thing you're really after is the +2 channel stacks. Iron Lion, this is going to be another easy S tier for me, another OP tier. Iron Lion just gives you +2 proj. If you're playing any build at all that wants additional projectiles, Iron Lion's going to be used in that build. So any projectile skill build's just going to be able to use them. And on top of that, he's also giving you projectile speed, which lets you scale Gale, which almost every projectile skill does want to do. That being said, though, I'm not the biggest fan of like what he gets when you level him up. Like a lot of these nodes, like conditional nodes, so there's no enemies in proximity, or knockback, so it forces you to scale knockback distance to gain damage. But for a level 1 pet, I think it's an absolutely solid pick. Projectile skills are currently not in the great state, so I'm going to put them at the bottom of OP tier. I might just put them at the top of the variety tier, to be honest. It can be used in a ton of builds, but there's no real projectile builds that like come to mind when I think about people stacking projectile quantity. I have personally used them though in a bunch of my builds. Captain Kitty of the Furious Sea. S tier on looks. I'm just gonna say it. This character is fucking S tier just on looks. Captain Kitty is another pet where honestly all the levels you get are completely worthless. The only levels that matter is 1 and 6. And he has this ability, immediately cast Warcry, 20% additional Warcry skill effect. The Warcry skill effect is not really a big deal, but being able to immediately cast a Warcry is absurdly powerful. If you've never played a Warcry build before in this game, essentially Warcry builds try and stack minimum Warcries, because every Warcry in this game has like a limit of 8 Warcries. Let's just use Resurrection. Yeah. So every Warcry has this minus 2% additional damage taken for each enemy affected, stacking up to 8 times. You know, this one's going to give you additional damage dealt with slash skills, stacks up to 8 times. If you combine this with Formless, which doubles your Warcry effect, or like the limit on your Warcry, you can stack up to 16 times, which means that if you're playing a Warcry build, you can have up to 6 stacks of Resurrection Warcry at all times and take 32% additional less damage. And on Fearless Warcry, you can get like over 100% additional damage with slash skills. It is very powerful as an archetype. And pretty much any Warcry build that you're going to play in this game is going to want to use Captain Kitty just to have the Beast Roar that lets you immediately cast your Warcries. The skill effect is nice for like for getting consistency to max stacks, but eventually you scale so many minimum Warcries that you just get to max stacks no matter what. With that being said, I have to put this cute little fella in the OP tier. I think Warcry builds are currently in a additional Warcry skill effect. Wait! Oh my god, it's not... Okay, never mind. The additional Warcry skill effect is fucking broken. I am stupid. I am very stupid. I thought this was area of effect. This is just the effect. Like, straight up the effect, which is absolutely insane. I knew it was broken, but I did not realize that. What that essentially means is this minus 2%, if it gets 20% effect, now it's minus 2.4%. Kitty is broken. Kitty is very good pet, and you only need it level 1. I'm gonna just put this at the top of OP tier to go next to Bonnie and stuff. Warcries are currently in an absolutely absurd state. I've been looking a lot at Warcries and thinking about like league sorting Warcry build, because I think they're just so strong that there's a lot of value in league sorting them. But I'm just figuring all of that out. Obviously, I want to play a build on league sort that I enjoy playing, and I am not a melee player. And that's also true. If you play Warcries, you can also get element immunity for these fights very early on. Warcries are very strong right now, though. He's essentially just on the same tier as Bonnie, but he's cuter than Bonnie. Backup power. Backup power is essentially a one-trick, where it's like the only character that really gets a lot of use of backup power is Erica too, because 45% or 35% numb effect is not that much numb effect, but if you scale it up to, you know, if your Euro trade is giving you like ×4 multiplier, instead of this being 45% numb effect, it's going to give me 190% numb effect. Sorry, 180% numb effect, and then it's pretty damn good. He also has the effect of giving you movement speed when you hit numbed enemies. Unfortunately, level 1, you do not have that effect. And to be honest, it's essentially just an Erica only pet then, like an Erica 2 only pet. So I'm also going to be putting him at the bottom of OTP tier. Actually, I'm going to put him like in the middle of OTP tier, because in terms of power, this numb effect is really good on Erica 2. He's a very strong OTP pet. It's just you can only use him in Erica 2. Abyssal Sulking, absolutely broken pet. The thing we want from him is this. Additional Reaping CDR. This effect essentially means that the way that Reaps work in this game is Reaps work with a breakpoint system, where at certain CDR points, you get like a Reap breakpoint. Now, I made a sheet on this already for people to be able to use, where it's like, you know, at these percentages, you get a Reap breakpoint. What he does is, let's say you have 400% Reap CDR, right? So you reach the 400% breakpoint. if you equip the Abyssal Soul King, that 400%, so it's 1% plus the base of 100 times 1.25 minus 100, is going to put you up to 525% Reap CDR. Just having him equipped alone is going to push you onto the next breakpoint. And that's why the Abyssal King Soul is like such an absurdly strong build. Any rebuild in this game absolutely has him as a requirement to use, because he lets you hit big breakpoints very easily. That being said, I do think rebuilds is a bit more on the niche side. Not really, though. A lot of people play Reap, but I think most builds just fit Reap in. I'm just gonna put him on the top of OP tier. Very strong character. Poised Omen. Poised Omen is really good, but also kind of bad at the same time. I'm sorry to say it. My problem with Poised Omen, so at the moment, the only way to get 2 curses in this game is using Poised Omen. In the past, you would just get it on Candle and the spread was very much useless. But nowadays, the only way to get like a second curse is to have Poised Omen. Because your Euro trait gives you those. You can cast 1 additional curse. But the most common way I feel now to get curses is just to get in Price's chest and get the you can cast 1 additional curse on the chest. Because in terms of like body slots and stuff, the chest is just a really broken slot to have Price's items on. There's very few legendary gears that I think can actually compete with the chest. But some of the few exceptions of that would be something like, you know, the Blight chest, if you're playing Deterioration, which is very good. Or if you're playing a Cicada Shell build, obviously you need Cicada Shell. And maybe there's some other options that's going to be even stronger than the Blight chest. And for those builds that don't have a way to get a second curse, you either just accept that and drop a second curse, or use Poised Omen. Now, if we look at the math on Poised Omen, if you can get Timid and Blighting Cold, like whatever 2 curses your build uses, or as base affixes on your Price's gear, then essentially equipping Poised Omen is giving you the value of this curse, which is 39% additional damage. And for a level 1 pet, 39% additional damage is very, very good. But if you are replacing your actual skills in your build, like you're dropping a power skill for Poised Omen, for that second curse, it actually loses a lot of value, because you need to subtract the value of that Empower skill. All of that word ramble is to say that it's very hard to quantify the value gained from Poised Omen. I think oftentimes it's better to use a different pet early in the game. But if you're in late game, you have base affixes for your curses, and like you can easily fit a second curse in without needing to equip the curse. I do think Poised Omen is an easy OP tier for you. But because of the reasons I mentioned, as well as I think often people get baited by Poised Omen, you know, they try to force her in the build and stuff. They don't realize, like, not only are they giving up the value of like a different legendary pet, giving them like 16% additional, 20% additional, they're also giving up their Empower skill, which is like giving them another 15% additional. All of that to get that second curse in, and then if you do it, math it out, it's not actually gaining your damage, sometimes even losing your damage. So, with that being said, I'm gonna put her at the top of variety tier. Actually, no, I'll put her at the bottom of variety tier, at the OP tier. I do think this is one of the best pets in the game you can get, but I also think that it scales insanely well with levels. Because level 3 and level 4, so level 3 and level 5, you get 8% and then 16% additional damage against cursed enemies. And when this pet's giving you 16% additional damage against cursed enemies, as well as 4% additional damage just flat up, I think the value of it goes up a lot, because then it starts looking a lot more attractive. Red Umbrella. Red Umbrella is basically just the same pet as Azure Gunslinger. It has the downside of, you know, it needs to be nearby to enemies. And it has the upside that it gives you a way to inflict paralyze on attack. I do think, personally, Red Umbrella is a bit more on the overrated side. I think Red Umbrella is very, very powerful. because you completely can ignore paralysis as like a debuff that you need to inflict on enemies. It just gives that to you. And if you didn't look at the value of it with just paralyze and additional attack damage dealt, it's going to be 15% multiplied by 10%, which is going to give you 26.5% more damage. Very, very good pet. Absolutely worth it to use. But I think it's often not that difficult to find paralyze on hit somewhere else in the build. I find it's often like very doable, whether it's through a slate, grudge on like getting grudge on like a magus or something like that, to find a different source of paralyze. I do think, however, Red Umbrella is an absolutely powerful character, and most melee attack builds are going to be using the Red Umbrella. And for that reason, I'm going to put it at the very top of variety. I think it's a very similar case to Poised Omen, where it's like, you can find alternatives to Poised Omen. I just think getting Paralyzed in your build is a lot easier than it is to get a +1 curse in your build. Fog Scorpion. Fog Scorpion is basically a bossing only pet. It gives you movement speed if there's 2 enemies nearby, and it gives you additional attack speed if there's 1 enemy nearby. That additional attack speed is very strong, but the movement speed it's okay. 9% movement speed is not that much, and you pretty much will never like really use this pet outside of specific bossing scenarios, like doing the dragon, for example. If you ever do like a boss fight that has like multiple enemies in it, like if you do the pirate or if you do Keegan with the dog, this pet doesn't even get that much usage. And I just think it's a pet that can be used in a lot of builds. It's just not that insane of a pet. I'm going to place it at the bottom of the variety tier. I think it has use in quite a few builds, but it's like very few and far in between. I just don't think it's that great of a pet. I almost want to put it in the F tier, but I don't think it's quite F tier material. Flower Whisperer, I don't like this pet. So the first problem that I have with Flower Whisperer is its ability is conditional. You get 16% additional projectile crit strike damage against distant enemies, and you get projectile crit chance, or like crit rating. So it's not even giving you 16% additional, it's giving you conditional 16% additional, because you need to be away from the enemies, and it has to be a crit. If you don't have 1% crit, this isn't even 16% additional, it's less. And overall, this really is just an outdated patch, to be honest with you. It just doesn't get used that often. It sometimes gets used in builds that have Gale because of projectile speed, but it even has less projectile speed than the Iron Lion, which gives you 7% for a small and 14% for a big. For that reason, not a big fan of the Flower Whisperer. I'm just going to put it on top of F tier. Unfortunate. I'm really not a fan of conditional effects. I generally, conditional effects is part of the reason why I want to put him in the bottom of F tier as well. And that's why I don't feel super great about putting her in the S tier. I just think that her conditional is like so consistent with the melee playstyle that it's fine. Bone Worm's Daughter. This is an easy S tier if your S is at the very bottom of the tier list. She absolutely sucks dick. So she has 2 things. You get spell critting per element on enemy and crit damage per element on enemy, but it caps out at 12% and 100 crit rating. Why? I don't understand why it caps out at 12 and 100. Like, I think she could be decent if it didn't cap out at 12 and 100. But it's like, her fucking notables are useless. You get mana regen. I mean, crit damage is really strong. Our other 2 notables are pretty bad, though. But the big problem is just Fatal Illusion sucks dick. The other pets are giving us, like, bad tier pets are giving us 17% additional, 16% additional. So what the fuck do you do with a pet that gives you 12% additional and a bit of crit? You put it in the bin. Starcatcher. So, Starcatcher is another issue that I have. One, it's nearby, so you have to be within 6 meters of the enemy, but you're playing a spellcaster, and it stacks up per second. So not only do you have to stay within the area of like the enemy or the boss, it slowly stacks up. And then all that it gives you is 80% additional cast speed and 9% movement speed. I genuinely don't have an excuse to make for this pet. I would literally rather use the purple pet, level 6, than this pet, because the purple pet gives me access to double damage, which is really strong. Absolute dog tier character. Or pet. Dreamweaver. Oh god. My savior. The only caster pet that's good. So Dreamweaver gives us 4% additional, and it gives us 4% Elipen. So 14% additional and 4% Elipen. It's difficult to calculate the value of Elipen, because that depends on how much Elipen you have. But oftentimes, this is going to result to somewhere in the 20% additional range. Just at level 1. And 3% additional might not sound that insane, but you have to understand that we're spellcasters, and spellcasters do not have good pet options. So we just take what we can get. Fire Swordsman. Fire Swordsman is a very niche pet in the sense that the only builds that really want to use Fire Swordsman is going to be like reaping affliction stacking builds that aren't playing channeling skills. So if you're playing a channeling skill, you're going to use Portal of the Fallen Saintress for your erosion damage. You're going to use Abyssal King for the Reap CDR, and you're going to be using Swaying Bonnie. The only time you will use Fire Swordsman is if you're not playing a channeling skill and you don't need Swaying Bonnie, because then he's going to be like the next best pick. Which, that's fine. It's just a very niche pool of like builds that he's going to fit into. But he's basically just the fallback Reap pet. So I'll just put him at the bottom of variety, nothing special. Crossroad Walker. Crossroad Walker is a weird one. Crossroad Walker is unironically one of the best pets in the game at level 6, but he's completely garbage prior to level 6. Well, okay, so I shouldn't say completely garbage pre-level 6, but he's not as good pre-level 6. So there's a few conditionals for this pet. For starters, at level 1, he gives you 13% additional ailment damage against cursed enemies. We don't care about this. I mean, okay, if you're playing an ailment build, maybe you care about that, but as we've spoken before, you simply just have better options for builds that might want to use them. It's just never really a pet that you're going to fit in, and it gives you 11.5% curse effect. This curse effect line, if you have double curse, is actually insanely powerful. Because at level 3 and at level 5, this goes up to 20% additional, so it's 31.5%. And then get the 33% bonus, and I think it's like 35% curse effect. So at level 6, this pet can give you 35% curse effect, and you can just Kismet over everything and use it in any build that uses dual curses. Like in my build, I'd be able to use that and get a lot of value out of the 35% curse effect. The problem is, this is a tier list for level 1 pets, and he kind of sucks dick at level 1. Giga strong for both Icelands. Okay, he's Giga strong for both Icelands. I guess I would put him in the OTP tier, but I'm not going to put him in the OTP tier. That's a bit too niche. Firewing's a very good pet. So Firewing gives us 2 effects. It's going to give you Affliction effect at full life. We really like Affliction effect. Affliction effect is very powerful. It just makes the enemies take more damage, and 8% is quite a lot. As well as Affliction inflicted per second. The faster you inflict your Affliction, the more consistently like you do your full damage, because it caps out at 100. Honestly, just a very solid pet. A common build you'll see using this is like builds playing with True Ignite. Like, it's very often if you see someone playing in Warlord, and they play True Flame, which gives Ignite 6% of the additional bonus damage taken over time from Affliction. For those players and builds, just go Firewing. Very solid pet, kind of a niche build type. I think I'm just gonna put this at the top of OTP, because I don't really know that many builds that play like Affliction Ignite. But pretty much like any Strength Stacker build would do it. I guess this should be at the top of Variety, to be honest, because Strength Stacking is quite a... there's quite a lot of builds that can do Strength Stacking and utilize this. Mechanical Throne. I hate Mechanical Throne. Every time I'm doing pet pulls and this guy pops up as my petty legendary, I just feel bad. I just feel fucking awful. And for some reason, it's always him. Every time I think this could have been a Chalk, this could have been a Dreamweaver, this could have been like any good pet. But nope, they gave him Mechanical Throne. That being said though, he's unironically a really strong Moto pet. Like if you're playing Moto, you're pretty satisfied playing Mechanical Throne. It gives your synth troops attack and cast speed when they deal double damage for 4 seconds, and it gives them a shit ton of chance to deal double damage. It's not the most insane amount of damage. 14% chance to deal double damage is essentially 14% additional if you don't have double damage. If you have double damage, this amount actually goes down. But it is still a pet that you can find use in on Moto. And for that reason, I'll just put it at like the bottom of the OTP tier list. I do think it's probably worse than some of the other OTP pets, though. And also, this should be at the top. Hamster is really good if you play Erica 2. Drapion Lady. Essentially, any Drapion Lady can be used in any like Iris build, but also any Mega Stacker is going to use Drapion Lady. Like, I'm, for example, playing a Mega Stack right now. I have Verdant Steps. I am fully Mega Stacking with 3 Megas equipped. And I am using Drapion Lady. I think Mega Stacking is such a powerful archetype that it's hard to not just put her at like the OP tier list. Even though what it actually does is not even that insane or crazy. It's pretty much a shoo-in for any single build that is doing Mega Stacking, and you only need it level 1. It doesn't really gain anything from level 2 to 5 for the Mega Stacking archetype. It does obviously for Irises and stuff. And then at level 6 you get more Origin Effect, which is pretty decent. Getting at level 6 eventually would be nice. It gives you 64% Origin of Megas Effect, and it's so difficult to come by Origin Megas Effect that like it's pretty much a requirement of my build to have her equipped. Otherwise I don't have like 100% conversion on my Verdant Stabs. Also, I guess technically it's more than 64%, because you're also using Source if you're playing a Mega Stacker. So that 64 is gonna turn into 83% Origin Effect. So yeah, pretty much just any like Mega Stacker pretty much almost wants to equip one. So I'll just put an OP tier. Oh god. I lost my place. Okay. Whisperwind Leaves. Whisperwind Leaves additional damage for recently summoned minions and crit rating for recently summoned minions. I'm pretty sure this gets used in Moto, like on Moto 2. And it's like really good for Moto 2. Because Moto 2 just keeps summoning pets that like suicide into the enemies. Giving those pets 20% additional damage is really fucking good. I'm gonna put it at the top of OTP tier. If you're playing Moto 2, you just use this pet. Anthem. So both Anthem and Spirit Blast are like very niche. You in Cicada Shell, you kind of want this additional max ES. In like a life second build, you want this additional life. But I will put Anthem slightly higher tier than Spirit Blast, just because Anthem gives you XP balance, which if you want to level to 100 the quickest way possible, you get full XP balance pets, and you just like spam Tarmok 7 or whatever like Tarmok you can just speed farm. But both of these are very niche. They're just going to be used in like very niche specific builds. And that's where I'm going to place them. Preserver of Eternity. Preserver of Eternity is the best pet in the game. She gives you access to Graceful Pride, which I believe gives you 30% movement speed at level 1. As well as like the fat percent movement speed. I'm not 100% sure because I have it level 6 now. Movement speed is the most important stat in the game. The faster you go, the more FP per hour you're making. And Preserve of Eternity is, for that reason, just insane on every single character. It is one of the few pets that, like, every time I got it when I lost the 50/50, I was super smiling and happy because I knew, like, I use it in every single build. And for that reason, she goes to the top of OP tier. I left the space open just for her. Knight of the Pale Blue. Knight of the Pale Blue is a very, very strong pet. It's very niche again. Essentially, if you need first damage reduction on a boss fight, he can almost just fix your first damage reduction. You know, if you're having the dog from Keegan jump on you and kill you, you know, the dog jumps on you, the dog is now nearby to you, assuming Keegan's not too close. He hits you and he does 40% less additional 40% less physical damage to you. Very strong pet. Just very good for like bossing and stuff and like fixing defenses. Just a good variety option. More on the niche side. Definitely more on the niche side just because like you only really use it for like bossing. But it makes the bossing fights significantly easier. Sprite of the Sun Veil. This is pretty much an Iris pet. If you're playing either Iris, you want to have this pet. She's very strong at level 1. She gives you 60% and plus 60 initial growth for Spirit Magi. Pretty much just, you know, a really good OTP pet. You just equip her if you're playing Iris. Witch of the Antelope of Lust. As hot as she is, because she looks fucking, you know, she has like that goat mommy vibes going off to her. Inflicting Paralyze and Weaken, like in turn, is just really not good. She's just really fucking bad. Like, having CC effect is nice, and Erosion Res is always nice, but unfortunately, she's just an outdated character that just doesn't really do anything. Raging Sands of the Eternal Night. This pet is unironically really, really good and, like, underrated. So, his effect attacks eliminate enemies under 4% life on hit if you've been blocked recently. That's kind of whatever. You know, like, that's kind of just whatever. The thing that makes him strong is you can get 24% block and 24% spell block just by having him equipped. In any build that's like lacking block, you know, you don't have your hero memories figured out yet, you don't have all that stuff figured out yet, or just early game, you're like struggling to get the block cap, just throw this guy in, boom, you're block capped. It's very much just like a niche build. But it's like a very good early solution to block cap. I think I'm just gonna put him on the bottom variety there. He's used like very nichely. Maybe like at the bottom of it's not an OTP though. I'm gonna put him in F tier, but like in his own league. Because I do think he has use. It's just I would never tell you to pull for him specifically as like your level 1 battle pad. Scale of Original Sin. This is another Iris legendary. Specifically, this pet is essentially just 40% additional damage if you're playing Iris 2. Absolutely absurdly broken pet. 100% requirement if you want to play Iris 2. And definitely at the top of OTP tier list for me. Lastly, we have Warbler of Plum Blossoms. I don't know how I feel about this pet, just based on how it looks at me. It's a bit disturbing. But the pet itself is actually quite interesting. So what it does is it gives you 10 all-res, and it converts 2% of first damage taken to a random element. And then on top of that, you can also get like another 10 all-res. It's basically just a very niche pet for getting res. But if you get levels in it, that's when it gets really nice, because it actually gives you a ton of like conversion. And in some builds, you might need it to like get you to 100% conversion. That being said, same thing as with the block guy. It's just too niche. I would never recommend it to someone. It is just something you would use early game to like fix a niche in your build. You know, just fix something until you can like get proper gear. Okay, and that's gonna be my tier list. I'm not gonna talk about Melting Flames, Ice Puppet, and Bitter Thunder, because all 3 of these pets you cannot pull with Battle Back Spirits. You can only pull on them if you have the celebration ones, and I would never do that. And the thing I don't like about them is that like they don't have 100% uptime on their debuffs. You know, all of the like main pack spread benefits is just conditional for a few seconds and there's on cooldown, which is really not nice. So that's gonna be my tier list, YouTube. I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope this gives some clarity for like, you know, where you're supposed to go to. I think I'm gonna mark out the pets that just work in any build in the game. Her and her work in any build in the game. If you like spellcasters, you go Dreamweaver. If you like melee, you can go her, or even Red Umbrella. If you play any sort of channeling skill, get Bonnie level 1. If you love Reap, get Abyssal Sulking level 1. If you want to try out Warcries and have a cute kitty, get the kitty. If you like mega stacking like me, go Drapion Lady. If you do any erosion damage based spells, get the Portrait. And other than that, you know, you'll be fine. I believe in you. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely day further. And I'll see you all again next time. Bye, YouTube.